Hello, Chris from MyStampLady.com. I'm here with the Brusho Crystal Colors. These are new in the Stampin' Up! Occasions catalog. So it comes with gamboge, yellow, moss green, Prussian blue, and brilliant red. I'm going to be using the brilliant red today. Okay, and with the Brusho, I'm going to be using the Amazing You stamp set. This is a Sale-A-Bration stamp set. And I'm also going to be using the Celebrate You Thinlits. And this has Celebrate, Amazing You, Amazing, and You. And I'm going to be using the Celebrate die here at the bottom. In fact, I've already cut out a piece of silver foil with that. Okay, so I'm starting and I'm using glossy paper for this project, and here's the example of the project. It has some red Brusho in the back. It has the Celebrate cut from foil here on the front, and then it's all done over glossy paper. So here's my piece of glossy paper. Okay, I had tried using rubbing alcohol thinking that that might dry more quickly, but the rubbing alcohol just didn't work. So we're going to spritz with water today. I'm starting off, I did the embossing buddy, and I'm going to emboss this flower image, let's see, 4 times across the card front. So first of all, you ink it with Versamark, and it's hard to see because it's just clear on the white, but I can see it when I kind of tilt the paper. And then once the powder catches it, you'll see exactly where I am stamping. So I've got my images stamped. Now I'm going to sprinkle it with the silver powder. You don't need a lot of powder, so I'm putting something underneath to catch the powder. I'm going to sprinkle it and then kind of dump off any extra powder. You want to make sure that you've removed any powder that you don't want, because once you heat set it, any powder that you have left on there will be permanently attached. So I need a little more powder down there, and I think that looks good. So I'll dump my extra powder back into my container, and then I'll pull the heat tool in and heat this. I cut short my heat time. It does take a little bit longer, but I have made sure that everything is melted. Oh, I'm going back in. I'm adding just a little bit of heat to the back to flatten it because it had a little bit of wave to the paper. So there are my silver embossed flowers. And now comes the Brusho magic with the brilliant red and the water in a spritzer. Okay, so I'm ready to get started with my brilliant red, and you'll notice the brilliant red has quite a bit in it, and it will last you a long time, but they don't recommend opening this little band here. Stampin' Up! Is recommended to poke one hole, and I've used this push pin to poke my hole, and then I just leave it in there to keep that hole covered when it's not in use. So that's what I would do with all of the Brusho crystal colors. Okay, so I'm spritzing a little bit of water on the back, and this will help it from warping too badly. And then I'm just going to start by spritzing a little bit of water on the front. I'm going to take my my brilliant red, and before I do that, I want to have handy a paper toweling and a paintbrush, because I'm going to use those as I work with the Brusho. I'm trying to sprinkle just a little bit of color and kind of in the center of the flower. I'm going to spritz that, a little bit of water there, and you can see that it right away it starts to work. Now I'm going to help the color kind of flow where I want it to with the paintbrush. I'm going to put a little bit outside and kind of brush that water where I want the color. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit to the center of my other flowers. And I'm trying to hit the center as best I can because that's where I want my color concentrated. Spritz it again with the water. The little spritzers are really handy, and they come in sets of 2. They're in the catalog or in our online store. So I'm going ahead just like I did before, and the silver embossing kind of resists the color, so you can see it moving around there. Now I'm adding where I want the color outside of my flowers. I'm using that toweling to kind of pick up some of the pools so that it will dry more quickly. You can leave it and just let it dry naturally. It does actually have a little bit of a different look if you just let it dry versus if you heat set it or add a little bit of heat with the heat tool. But because of this video, I'm going to kind of hurry it up and get it dry. I do use my heat tool to set some of that color. But it does have a little different look. You get a little different flow of the water and the color. Okay, so everyone looks different. It's kind of, the mixed media, it has a different look every time you're doing this. Decided to add just a bit more water to this left side over here. I'm always having trouble finding that little hole. I mean, I know it shouldn't be that difficult, but I do have difficulty. In fact, at our last meeting, I added a little more color too. I kept spraying the woman across from me because the hole just seems to escape me. I know it's a problem. But anyway, it's really not that difficult. It's the user. So once you get your color how you want it, you can just go in and finish up by adding as much color and water as you'd like. Okay, so I did finish mine with the heat tool, adding a little bit of heat to it. I noticed that I have some darker areas that dried, so there's some pooled areas. I like that look. You can just go with it if you want, but it will look a little different if you do not heat set it. Okay, so we're going to move on to the rest of the card. Here I have my silver foil Celebrate that I cut out with the Thinlit die. And I'm using my fine tip glue to glue it down. The letters are fairly thick, so it's fairly easy to glue them down. If you want to add a Sizzix adhesive sheet on the back of that, you will be easy to just remove that backing and glue it down. But I did use the fine tip glue, and then I'm just going to position this onto my Blushing Bride strip kind of to the right side. Now I've got some fast views. I'm going to mount the background onto this, and once you go down onto the fast views, it's stuck. It's really hard to pick it up, so I am trying to kind of position it really carefully. And then right now I am going to add a piece of ribbon. I could add it right now and then it would cover the back. I didn't do that though. I had just mounted it down to the Blushing Bride card front, and then I'll mount my ribbon later. But if you want to hide that back of that ribbon, do it before this step. Okay, so I've put this down right onto my card front, and then I mount my strip with the Celebrate right onto this. Love the fast fuse. It's a really strong adhesive. However, it does need that little check mark, otherwise you get where it doesn't let go of from the applicator. So place that down. Now this red ribbon I'm using, I loved it. It was in the holiday catalog. It's been carried over, which is exciting because that means you can still get it. And I am wrapping it around the front. I'm going to take a little mini glue dot and I'm going to put it right under the knot, or right under where this first tying spot is. It's kind of like having that other person there to hold it in place. You can just use a mini glue dot to do that. The mini glue dots are a little bit wider than the knot is, so I kind of have to push a little bit of the edge of it underneath the knot just so it's not sticking out. Then I go ahead and I make 2 loops of my bows and tie them in place. I typically kind of adjust my bows until they look how I want them to look. That's up to you. It just depends on how much or how careful you want to be about that, but I make it a little bit smaller and then I cut off the tails. My next step is to add some bling. Bling is essential. I love the rhinestone jewels. I use them so much. I go through many sheets of them, especially now when you can use the blends to color them, the alcohol markers, and use them in many different colors. So just put those to the left of the Celebrate. It adds just a little bit of bling and also carries the eye off to that left side. So here's my card with the Brusho on the glossy cardstock, and I concentrated behind the flowers. Now this is Brusho on watercolor paper. I believed I used the red and the yellow for this one, did a little bit of each. Love it on watercolor paper. It's an excellent look. And then I also put some of the Prussian blue over a piece of designer series paper. So those are some other looks that you can get with that. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me, Chris at mystamplady.com. All the supplies are available in my online store at shopwithmystamplady.com. Thanks for watching.